Hello and welcome to another episode of Reboot America. I'm Chintzy Crochet and I'm here with my good friend David Smith. How are you, David?
Surviving the heat and trying to stay cool and staying hydrated. That's about the best I can do right now.
Yeah, it's summer and it's Texas. So yeah, that's about all you can do about this. Thank God for air conditioning. I mean, I often think about it. It's like, how did people manage to live here before air conditioning?
Yeah.
But that's a topic for another day. Today, we want to talk about a New York Times Siena poll, which was just released, I believe, yes, today, July 31st at 7 a.m. And so far, I have to say that I've pretty much ignored the polls that have come out. Especially the polls that show that Ramaswamy is at 12%.
Gonna say I was I was looking at this thinking, boy, what happened to Ramaswamy's support? Boy, that cratered. That went fast. Talk about flavor of the week. My goodness.
Flavor of the hour. I mean,
Yeah.
he just. But those were not.
Ramaswamy 12%. Ramaswamy 2%. Yeah, you're not hearing anybody in the Trump camp talking about this poll. I'm guessing. I'm guessing they're not going to.
They're talking about it because it just shows that Donald Trump is definitely defeating DeSantis. So,
Yeah.
but no, none of the Vivek fans, which seem to come out of nowhere, frankly.
Yeah.
They're not saying very much. But I think this poll is a realistic poll. And I think that this poll also has the reputation of being fairly accurate. And I'm willing to concede that this is where the race is at as of now. Trump 54, DeSantis 17, and then Pence, Scott, Haley, they're at 3, and Ramaswamy 2, which I think is realistic, and Christie is 2 also. And then the ones below 1%, I guess that's Asa Hutchinson. They're not even shown. I have to say, it's not so much the top number that it's depressing to me. It's when you look into the detail of the poll and how people have answered different questions that I find it really, really I find it depressing. They say that you go into the war, into the battle with the army you have. And my God, if this is our army, David, we're not going to defeat the left.
Well, so let's hit those because you've highlighted several of those in our discussion offline. Let's hit those. Jump right into it.
Well, I mean, the main thing is that, quote, Mr. Trump held decisive advantages across almost every demographic group and region and every ideological wing of the party. He led by wide margins among men, women, younger, older, moderates, conservative, those who went to college and those who didn't, and in cities, suburbs, and rural areas. So he is enjoying, this shows a party that is completely dedicated to just the personality of Trump.
Too bad the fundraising isn't matching that, but that's a separate topic. Anyway, Keep going.
Overall, Trump led DeSantis 54-17. No other candidate topped 3%. He said, and then it goes and says, below those lopsided top line figures were other ominous signs for DeSantis. He performed his weakest among some of the Republican Party's biggest and most influential constituency. DeSantis only earned 9% among those who are at least 65 years old and 13% among those without a college degree. But here's the shocker. Republicans who describe themselves as very conservative favor Trump by 50-point margin, 65 to 15%. This is people who call themselves very conservative. I can't explain this number. Can you?
No, and when we first got on the phone talking about this was the first point that you brought up and that you highlighted from this poll is the percentage of Republicans who describe themselves as very conservative, favoring Trump 65 to 15. So, I mean, even more so, significantly more so than the 54%.
Mhm.
That's astounding.
I mean, it raises the question of what do they mean by very conservative? Because when you look at the record and you look at when you look at the policies that they have supported, the record, everything, DeSantis is the conservative candidate running. Donald Trump is populist. He's not a conservative. He's never been a conservative. What do they mean by very
You
conservative?
brought up another point later in the article talking about the poll, the one talking about the 6-week abortion ban. You want to read that quote? Because that was a point that you had also reading this. And I think that it just drives home point that you're talking about with the 65% among self-described very conservatives. You want to read that one just to highlight that?
Quote, Mr. DeSantis signed a strict 6-week abortion ban that Mr. Trump criticized as, quote, too harsh. Yet, Mr. Trump enjoyed the support of 70% of Republicans who said they strongly supported such a measure. So you have 70% of people who strongly support the 6-week abortion ban going with Trump, who criticized it. These people are completely divorced from record and policy.
Yeah, I think that they're just sold on Trump, either his hysterics or his behavior, or I don't know what it is. Whatever it is, they're completely sold on him.
Yeah,
And
it's him. It's his personality. It's the swagger. It's oh, look, he came on stage and hugged the American flag. That means he loves America. I think it's all about the presentation and nothing else.
well, it's like we discussed offline where we said this comes across to me as, they're asking, they'd get a more accurate take, I think, if they would just ask people, who do you support, Trump or DeSantis? Trump. Instead, they're asking questions like, who do you think is the stronger leader, Trump or DeSantis? 69% to 22% Trump. Who do you think gets things done? 67% Trump, 22% DeSantis.
It's just mind boggling.
And we went into a long discussion on the strong leader front that I'll just summarize to just say everything that Trump has ever launched, everything he has ever attempted, every business he's ever been involved with, every major investment in properties or anything, he's not succeeded with. And I think that you could very easily say that means that he has had very poor staffing decisions in all those cases, because if you have a really great manager working underneath the guy that owns the thing, that manager can make the thing work. That manager can make the thing happen. That manager can manage the team, the subordinates, and make things work. If you don't have that in place, Trump is obviously not that person. He's never operated anything profitably, successfully. I mean, all of the bankruptcy, his wake is littered with failure.
Okay, that's his business. But let's talk about his political record. He gets things done. Well, was the swamp drained? Was the wall built? Did he prosecute Hillary? Was the budget balanced?
Where were the 4 and 5% GDP growth figures?
Yes, it's a long list of things that he promised and never delivered. Let's face it, the main achievements of his administration were items that both Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan prioritized. That is tax cuts, more military spending, the judicial appointment, and essentially what Donald Trump's contribution to it was to put his fancy signature on the legislation and then flash it around for the media to take pictures. I seriously doubt he even knew what he was signing.
Well, there were things that got done with signature on the executive orders, but that stuff all went away the day that Joe Biden took office. So that wasn't permanent. That was temporary at best for people to say, oh, he gets things done. Again, like you said, there was nothing that got passed through Congress. Nothing got passed House and Senate. I mean, these are the things that they're giving him credit for, and deservedly so, but you have to keep it in context that he didn't go for trying to get any of this stuff passed through Congress because he couldn't. Because, like you said, McConnell and Ryan were there to block him on those things. So when you say get things done, it's like, what are you really saying? Was that really done?
It goes back to what you said. You instead of asking about who's the strong leader, gets things done, who do you support, Trump or DeSantis? Because that's the level.
Right.
There's not any real thought behind any of this position. I mean, the next one, able to beat Joe Biden 58-28. Donald Trump just lost to Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's the one that
The Trump fans will come back and say, well, but he was cheated in 2020. Okay, he was cheated. Well, he was president in 2020 and he couldn't stop the cheating. How is he going to stop the cheating now that he's a private citizen?
able to beat Joe Biden, 58% Trump, 28% DeSantis. It's like, are you people serious? Are you listening to the question?
Obviously, the DeSantis campaign has not been the shiny campaign that, it's okay. It's not awful. It's not the end of the world, but it's not great. And
They obviously don't have an answer for Trump yet. They obviously
no, they
don't.
obviously don't have an answer. This is a referendum on the GOP. That's how I see it. I think we will find out whether or not Republicans are serious about the issues that they claim they care about. These are people who say that they are conservative, very conservatives, but when push comes to shove, do they pick the guy that has been consistent in his stances and has a record of delivering? No, they picked the guy that did the opposite.
That was the one I was thinking was the record.
They like the guy. They find him exciting. Okay, good. You like the guy. Just say that. I like the guy.
Well, here you go. This is, I think, states it perfectly. Interestingly, the share of Republicans who said Mr. Trump was more "quote unquote" fun than Mr. DeSantis, 54-16, almost perfectly mirrored the overall horse race.
Yes.
So, in other words, what I said earlier, why don't you just ask, do you like Trump or do you like DeSantis? All these other questions come across as irrelevant. I think that fun, that nailed what you just said.
We're selecting a president of the United States, a person that has a great deal of power. And you're looking at fun. Fun is great if you want to decide what show you want to watch, go to a concert, whatever it is. But when you are choosing the leader, of a superpower, when you're choosing a man who will have the nuclear codes and the ability to go to war, fun,
Fun is the question I'd expect you'd be asking Trump's grandchildren and children. Who do you think's more fun? Yeah. Selecting the guy who's going to be carrying around the nuclear codes.
This election cycle, we're going to find out whether the people, the GOP electorate, the primary electorate, are serious. Are they serious about these issues or not? We're going to find out.
I am encouraged that it appears the last two topics that they covered in this poll, likable and moral, that DeSantis edges out Trump in both of those. I guess, who did you find more likable, Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis? 43% Trump, 45%. Okay, great. Okay, Ron DeSantis is more likable. Moral, you would hope that there'd be a little bit of a spread there. 37% Trump, 45% DeSantis. So at least these people are capable of identifying in some details here. Maybe Ron DeSantis is the stronger candidate of the two on these areas. Does that mean that there's going to be any kind of a swing over time that direction? I don't know. But the fact that we're seeing Ron DeSantis outpolling Trump in anything,
yeah, but you know what?
That's encouraging.
If tomorrow Donald Trump tells him that Ron DeSantis is an immoral person who tried to kill JFK, you watch those numbers change.
But there are a couple of data points in here that it's encouraging to see. If you took everybody else out, DeSantis has a little bit of a net gain. Now, if it ends up being every state goes 62-31, then Trump wins this walking away. This is over early. He gains a massive number of delegates, and Ron DeSantis goes back to Florida to lick his wounds and figure out what he's going to do next. And that's not a good situation. But the fact that people who are not saying yes Trump right now, if all these other candidates fall out, the majority of those are going for DeSantis. That's a good thing hidden within all of this ridiculousness.
They're not looking at the record. They're not looking at the issues. These are people who say they want to defeat woke, and then you don't pick the guy who took on woke and defeated it in Florida. Then you're not serious. You're not serious. Because if you're serious about fighting the left, then you want someone who has shown that he can do it. Hey, you want someone who has the discipline, because it's not going to be an easy fight.
Right.
If anything, when Donald Trump got elected, we got to see just how powerful and relentless and tenacious the deep state is, and how many weapons they have to destroy people. So we've seen how hard this fight is. You have a young man who has already shown that he can take on Soros, and you're going to take a pass. Why? Because he's not fun.
Right.
I think what we're seeing here is all of these indictments have had the effect of creating a martyr. I think that there's a lot of anger on the part of a lot of the Republican voters of the way that Trump was treated. I think that Donald Trump has very, very cleverly redirected that anger away from the Democrats and put him on Ron DeSantis. But how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that if you're the DeSantis campaign?
They don't have an answer.
What was that quote about the surly Trump kind of captures the surly mood of the Republican Party? So the quote is, for now, though, Mr. Trump appears to match both the surly mood of the Republican electorate, 89% of whom see the nation has headed in the wrong direction, and Republicans' desire to take the fight to the Democrats. End of quote. Desire to take the fight to the Democrats. You are going to fight with the guy that, number one, for 4 years was constantly being rolled by the
He
Democrats.
was being rolled by his own Republicans in Congress.
Exactly. I know Trump supporters want to ignore the indictments. They're not fair. It's a witch hunt. I will grant you all that. But he just spent $40 million in legal fees, and this is just the beginning. How is he going to finance the general election?
Now, you told me the dollar amount that he has raised. You just said the dollar amount he spent on legal fees. How much has he raised?
I think last quarter he raised 35 million. So he raises 35 million and he has spent 40 million in legal fees.
Now,
Again, how is he going to finance the campaign? Now, when you raise this issue with Trump supporters, they'll say, yeah, but he's a billionaire. He can pay for his own campaign. Well, if he can pay for his own campaign, why isn't he paying for his legal fees?
right.
It goes back to what I said at the beginning of the program. If this is the army we have to go into battle, I just don't see how you can defeat the left. This is an army that doesn't seem to understand what it takes to finance a presidential campaign, doesn't seem to understand the kind of coalitions you need to put together to win a presidential campaign, what states need to be won in order to get to 270. They're just like the guy. He matches their mood. They're angry, he's angry. They want to call Democrats names, he calls Democrats name. That's it. They don't have a strategy. They don't even seem to care about having a strategy.
Well, they think that you go and storm the Capitol.
Pickett's charge. Let's run up the hill and get slaughtered. And that's exactly what's going to happen to the GOP unless things fundamentally change. I even heard Trump supporters say that they will vote for him even if he's sitting in jail. Really? Do you think he'll be able to attract independent, moderate voters if he's sitting in jail? And let's say that by some miracle he manages to win while sitting in jail. How is he going to be able to govern? How is he going to be able to drain the swamp?
You're talking about activists who don't understand what it takes to win in a political environment. And the first thing that you have to have is, who's your commander in chief, in this case, candidate? Who is it that you're putting up there? And this is the thing. People are, as I've said in other conversations, we are a nation of employees. We are not strategists. We are not managers. We're not executives. We're not investors. We are the frontline people. We are the cogs in the works. We're the little guys who take the orders, don't give the orders. And then we're now expected to select who it is that's going to be the guy who's going to lead us into victory. And there's a hang up there in being able to bridge the gap between those two concepts. And we just don't get it.
Here's another example from the article. The person being quoted was talking about DeSantis. He does not come across with humor. He's not running to be a comedian. He's running to be president of the United States. He's running to stop the decline of America. Another quote: "He comes across as a good Christian man, wonderful family man, but he doesn't have that fire, if you will, that Trump has. Did the fire build the wall? Did the fire drain the swamp? Did it balance the budget?" I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on.
DeSantis, he may not be very funny or very humorous in a slapstick sort of slap your knee, ha 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 sort of way, like Trump is very much so. But he just flat shuts down the media at times in his responses and the tone that he takes, the direction he's coming from, the facts that he's bringing in, the things that he says. I mean, he shut down that journalist who was, it sounded like that he was just a kid asking a question. You know, were there positive aspects of slavery? That's not what it said. So my point is, people ought to be able to see and hear this with DeSantis in his answering of these things, and they're just not. This poll is showing that they're not.
No, what they want is they want the silly names.
Yeah,
They want to be entertained. He's not fun. These people need to be just shamed. You're electing the president of the United States. You're not electing a comedian. You want to be entertained? Go to a show. Do you think the Democrats were thinking, "Oh, Joe Biden, he's so fun. He's so clever"? No, that's not what they were thinking. They were thinking this is the candidate who's going to win back enough white working class men to win again Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and win the presidency. Anyway, there was a quote at the very end of the article that you seem to be very impressed with.
first of all, you're talking about a 22-year-old. You're talking about a server. So if he's a college graduate, he's basically a recent college graduate. You're talking about somebody who's not been around the block terribly many times in life. And I'm not criticizing him by saying that, but here's a young person, and he makes a really, in my opinion, stunning observation. He says he liked what Mr. DeSantis had done for Florida, but didn't think the governor could overcome the enthusiasm for Mr. Trump. And I think that is probably the most impressive quote and observation of anybody in this entire article. And it's coming from a 22-year-old who's waiting tables. That's really impressive to
Well,
me.
that gives me hope for the next generation, because God knows those 65 plus very conservative who choose Trump over DeSantis really ruined my day.
And then, of course, my favorite part of it, he ends his quote with my favorite words, you know? I just love that. I say that every other sentence.
All right, that's a wrap. Hopefully, I didn't rant too much. On to the next great conversation. As always, it's great talking to you, David. Have a good day.
Look forward to it. You too. Bye-bye.